She was young and ignorant, abused in silence, blamed for what she never asked for, and forced to carry a secret that could destroy her. But when the truth finally came out, it shocked the entire community. This is the heartbreaking story of Zara, and you won't believe what she did next. Stick around till the end, and because her final choice will leave you speechless. My father's voice whispered, "Don't be scared." My heart pounded hard in my chest. I tried to push him off, but he held me down. "Stay still," he said, pressing my face into the pillow. The pain was so sharp and bad that it felt like I was going to unalive. How can my father do this to me? Tears streamed down my face as I struggled under his weight. I couldn't scream. My voice got stuck in my throat. I felt pain, confusion, shame, and silence. After my mother left, I became a wife to my father. I am Zara, and I am 18 years old. In all my 18 years, I can't remember the last time I was truly happy. My father and mother were married for 18 years. They got married because I was on the way. Their marriage was nothing to write about. My father was an alcoholic and always hit my mother. They would yell at each other every single day. The walls of our small house knew nothing but the sound of plates breaking and voices rising. I used to think that life couldn't get any worse than waking up to shouting every morning, but I never knew that was just the beginning of my real suffering. It was on a Sunday evening. My father had gone out to drink as usual. I helped my mother prepare dinner in silence. We didn't talk much anymore. She was always tired, and I didn't know how to talk about my feelings. When my father returned, he was drunk and angry. He started shouting again. My mother tried to keep quiet, but he dragged her by the arm and pushed her to the floor. I ran to her, but he slapped me too. That was the last straw for my mother. That night, with a swollen cheek and tears in her eyes, she packed her bags. I held her leg tightly, crying, "Mommy, please, don't leave me. Take me with you." But she knelt and held my face, shaking her head. "Zara, I don't know where I'm going. I don't even have a plan. But your father has a house. Stay here. At least you will eat. You will sleep on a bed." She stood up and walked out the door. I stood there crying, my chest heavy. My whole world shattered in that moment. That was the day everything changed. I cried myself to sleep that night. The pillow was soaked with tears. The next morning, I forced myself out of bed, cleaned the house, fetched water, and went to school. My eyes were swollen, but I didn't care. My best friend, Amina, noticed and asked me what happened. I just told her I was tired. "I'm here if you want to talk," she said gently, but I couldn't say anything. When I got home after school, my father had already left for work. He left a small note with some money on the table. I took it, went to the market, and bought yam and palm oil. I cooked for the both of us. That was what my mother used to do. Now I was the one doing it. Night came. I waited for my father to come home. I sat on the mat in the small parlor, pretending to do my assignment, but my eyes were always on the door. It was getting late. By 11 p.m., I gave up, and the air was heavy and warm. I opened my eyes in fear and smelled alcohol. The stench was strong, burning my nose. I froze. I couldn't move. My father's voice whispered, "Don't be scared." My heart pounded hard in my chest. I tried to push him off, but he held me down, pressing my face into the pillow. The pain was so sharp and bad that it felt like I was going to unalive. How can my father do this to me? Tears streamed down my face as I struggled under his weight. I couldn't scream. My voice got stuck in my throat. I felt pain, confusion, shame, and silence. The same silence that had lived in our home for years, only now it lived inside me. I couldn't sleep all through the night. I lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling, tears flowing silently from my eyes. My body ached, not just my body, my heart, my soul. Everything inside me felt broken. I couldn't understand how a father could do such a thing to his own daughter. I wasn't supposed to carry pain like this. The sun had barely risen when I got up. My legs shook beneath me as I walked to the bathroom. I splashed water on my face, staring into the small cracked mirror on the wall. I could barely look at myself. The girl in the mirror looked lost, like a ghost. As I stood there, the door creaked open. My heart jumped. I turned quickly. My father stood there looking ashamed, and he rubbed his hands nervously. "Zara," he said softly, walking closer to me. "I'm sorry. I was drunk. I didn't know what I was doing." Refusing to look at him, he reached out, trying to hold my shoulder, but I moved away. "Please, Zara, I swear it won't happen again. I'll stop drinking. I'll change, I promise. Just don't tell anyone. You know people will never understand. It will bring shame. We'll be fine, I promise." I had heard those same words before. My father said them to my mother every time he beat her. He would cry, kneel down, beg, and then go back to his old ways. So did I believe him? Of course not. I dressed for school quickly and left the house without eating. I didn't want to stay another second in that place. At school, I couldn't focus. The words on the blackboard danced around in my eyes. My head hurt and my heart was heavy. Jamila tried to talk to me, but I kept quiet. I didn't want to tell her. I couldn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? And even if they did, what could they do? When the closing bell rang, I packed my books and walked home slowly. Every step I took felt like a walk toward danger. I wanted to turn around and run somewhere, anywhere, but where would I go? I had no mother, no auntie, no place to hide. When I reached home, my father was already in the parlor, pretending to watch TV. He smiled when he saw me. "How was school?" he asked like nothing happened. I didn't answer. I just went to the kitchen, warmed the leftover food, and ate quietly. My stomach turned with every bite, but I needed strength. When night came, fear filled my chest. The darkness became my enemy. I begged God not to let me sleep. I stayed awake as long as I could, but soon my eyelids became heavy and nature took its course. I don't know how long I had been asleep when I felt that weight again, the familiar smell of alcohol. I opened my eyes and saw him, my father, again. He grabbed my hands and forced them down. "Stay still," he said harshly. "Don't make it hard." I kicked, I screamed, I cried, but he was stronger. He did again, just like I had seen him hurt my mother. I lay there in pain, bruised and shaking. The sheets were wet with my tears. I couldn't stop crying. My chest burned. My body screamed. The morning came too fast. I stood up slowly, wincing at the pain between my legs. I couldn't look at my father. I walked past him, out of the house, and ran. I ran all the way to school. When I arrived, my clothes were dusty and my eyes red. My teacher, Madam Sarah, saw me from the gate. "Zara," she called. "What happened to you?" I froze, and again she walked up to me, touching my arm gently. "Why are you shaking like this? And your leg? Are you hurt?" I looked at her kind face. I wanted to scream the truth. I wanted to cry in her arms, but the words died in my throat. I sat in the dark. I whispered. She looked at me for a moment, concerned. But she didn't push. She nodded slowly and told me to sit in her office and rest. As I sat down, I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to hold my pieces together. At home that Saturday, I sat alone in the corner of our small living room, my arms wrapped around my knees. My heart was heavy and my thoughts loud. I hated everything. I hated the walls that heard my screams and did nothing. I hated the chair where my father sat every evening, pretending to be normal. Most of all, I hated my mother. She left me. She saw the kind of man my father was. Yet she walked away and left me in his hands. How could a mother do that to her only child? I cried so much my head hurt. My body was already used to the pain, but my heart wasn't. I blamed her, and I blamed God too. What kind of God allows this to happen to a child? Why me? That became my life for months. I stopped fighting. I became quiet. I would go to school and come back home like a robot. I avoided people. I avoided mirrors. I stopped looking at myself completely. At night, he would come again. I didn't scream anymore. I didn't fight. He would whisper things like, "You're a good girl, already baby," and I would close my eyes, wishing I could vanish from the world. I hated his voice. I hated his breath, that heavy smell of alcohol and sweat. But most of all, I hated that I had no one to tell. Then one day, something unexpected happened. It was our school's annual inter-house sports day. I wore my yellow house t-shirt and tried to smile as we cheered and clapped for our housemates. But inside me, I felt weak. Everything around me was spinning slowly. My friends didn't notice at first, but during the 100-meter race, I took 2 steps and collapsed. I woke up later in the school clinic. "She's awake," the nurse said. "Zara, how do you feel?" Madam Sarah asked, worried. "I'm okay, just tired," I whispered. The nurse looked closely at me, then turned to Madam Sarah and said something that made my heart skip a beat. "Her symptoms are consistent with early pregnancy," the nurse said quietly. Eyes widened. "Pregnant?" I sat up slowly, shaking my head. No, I can't be." "Zara," the nurse asked softly, "has any boy been fooling around with you?" I quickly shook my head. "No, I don't talk to boys like that." "Who do you live with?" "My father," I answered. "What about your mother?" She left me months ago," I said, biting my lips to stop more tears. Then came the question I had feared most. "Has your father been touching you?" My lips trembled. My throat tightened. I couldn't answer. I burst into tears. The nurse and my teacher exchanged a long, quiet glance. They didn't push me further. I was given some medicine to help me rest, and later, they carried out a pregnancy test. I sat silently on the edge of the bed, fingers trembling as we waited for the result. When the nurse returned, "It's positive," she finally said. Madam Sarah sat beside me and held my hand. "Zara, please, talk to me. Who did this to you?" But I just cried. My tears were my only answer. I couldn't say it. Saying it out loud would make it real. Madam Sarah stood up and left the room. She went straight to the principal and reported everything. They didn't waste time. They called my father. When he arrived, he came in with that same fake concern on his face. The moment they mentioned the word pregnancy, he flared up. "What? How can you accuse me of such evil? That's my daughter, my own blood. I've raised her alone since her mother left, and this is the thanks I get? You people want to ruin my name." Despite his shouting, the school authorities couldn't prove anything yet. They didn't want to risk offending a parent without evidence, so he was allowed to take me home, but not without warnings. As soon as we got home, everything changed. He locked the door behind us, threw his keys on the table, and turned to face me. "You better not say anything that will get me in trouble," he hissed, his eyes dark with anger. "Do you know what they'll do to you if I go to jail? You think strangers will treat you better?" He walked toward me slowly like a predator. "I'm your only family," he said, his voice turning softer. "I made a mistake, I admit, but I can fix it. We'll get rid of the pregnancy, quietly. Then I'll change, I promise. I'll be better, you'll see." His words twisted in my ears. For a moment, I froze. What if he was right? What if I talked and lost everything? What if they sent me to a home where people treated me worse? What if no one believed me? "You don't want to live with the guilt of sending your father to prison, do you?" I stared at his hand, then at the door. I could still smell the hospital. I could still see the pity in Madam Sarah's eyes. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Knock, knock, knock. My father turned sharply. "Who is that?" he growled. I stood up slowly. "Knock, knock." He rushed toward the door, but I got there first. "Who is it?" he asked from behind me, nervous. "Child Protective Services," a woman's voice replied. "We were informed of a possible abuse case. We need to speak with Zara." My heart started pounding. I turned the doorknob and opened it slightly. A woman and a man stood outside, wearing official tags. Then it hit me. This was the moment. I had to choose. Would I protect him and continue living in fear and pain, or would I save myself? I stared at the woman's kind eyes. She stepped forward. "Are you Zara?" I nodded slowly. "Shall we talk to you, dear?" I turned around. My father's eyes were burning into my back. My hands were shaking. The woman at the door looked at me with gentle eyes. This was my moment, my chance, to speak or stay silent. What did I do next? You'll find out in part 2. Subscribe to hear the rest of my story.